So, you've got that dream, right? The one where you start your own business? Well, you're in the right place. We're going to break down the essential truths from the Entrepreneur's Guide and give you a quick 5-minute reality check. Let's just jump right in.
And this quote from Edison, it pretty much says it all. The big takeaway here is that entrepreneurship, it's not what you see in the movies. It's way less about the glamour and those overnight success stories, and way more about just pure grit and a ton of hard work.
All right, so here's the game plan. First, we're going to hit you with a reality check. Then we'll talk about finding an idea that actually makes money. After that, we'll get into how to avoid the classic mistakes, figure out where the money really comes from, and wrap it all up with the one thing that matters most, the customer.
Okay, first things first. We've got to talk about the foundational truth that every, and I mean every, aspiring entrepreneur needs to hear before they do anything else.
So let's talk about the dream versus the reality, because this is a big one. We all have this picture in our heads, right? Flexible hours, being your own boss, total freedom. But the reality? Well, based on what actual business owners say, it's different. Think 65 to 85-hour weeks. And that idea of total independence? Forget it. You're actually answering to your customers, to the banks, to your own staff.
And then there's this number. Wow, 90%. In some cases, up to 90% of new businesses just don't make it past the first few years. And you know, it's not always because the idea was bad. Sometimes the owner is just so overworked they burn out and decide the grind just isn't worth it. So the lesson here, you got to be ready for a marathon, not a sprint.
Okay, so let's get into finding a profitable idea. And here's the thing. If you're just sitting around waiting for some revolutionary idea to strike you like a bolt of lightning, well, you might be waiting for a very, very long time.
Yeah, this is one of the biggest myths we have to bust. That pressure to invent the next big thing, it just paralyzes people. So if these great, profitable ideas don't come from some magical aha moment, where do they actually come from?
Well, they usually come from pretty practical, down-to-earth places. You know, you might look at a product you use every day and just think, hey, I could do that better. Or maybe you see a real need in your own community and decide to fill it. It could be as simple as combining your skills and your passions. Or even, and this is a good one, just copying a successful idea and bringing it to a whole new market. It's all about solving problems, sometimes even your own frustrations. You want a perfect example? Look at Häagen-Dazs. The founder, Ruben Mattis, he didn't invent ice cream, not even close. The market was already flooded with cheap, low-quality stuff. So what was his brilliant idea? He just decided to make it better. He used premium ingredients to create a luxury product. He didn't invent, he improved.
All right, so we know the failure rate is scary high, so this next part, this is your blueprint for survival. This is how you avoid becoming just another one of those statistics.
Okay, here's another huge myth we need to tackle. The idea that pure passion is enough to get you to the finish line. Look, passion is absolutely critical, but it's not a substitute for having a solid plan. The truth is, most businesses don't fail for some mysterious reason. They fail because of really practical and, honestly, preventable problems.
So what are these big, predictable problems? Well, here are the top offenders. Number 1, running out of cash. That's the big one. Then there's just poor management. But check out the others. Being inflexible. Refusing to adapt when your customers are telling you something needs to change. Or terrible marketing. Because let's face it, a great product doesn't just sell itself. And finally, and maybe most importantly, just forgetting who this is all for in the first place. Your customer. These are the real dragons you've got to slay.
All right, let's talk about the money, funding. There's so much mystery and, frankly, bad information out there about it. But the reality is often a lot more straightforward than you might think.
Right, so the story we always hear is that you have to get venture capital, right? And that banks, biff, they won't even give a startup the time of day. So if that's the myth, what does the actual data say? Where does the money really come from?
Okay, this is really fascinating. Check this out. According to a Federal Reserve survey, for businesses that are 2 years old or younger, 53% of their financing actually comes from debt. Borrowed money. That's compared to 47% from equity. So totally contrary to the popular myth, borrowing is actually the more common route. And here is the real kicker. That same data, it shows that banks, banks, account for 16% of all financing for these young businesses. That is a bigger piece of the pie than your friends, family, and even angel investors all put together. So what's the big takeaway here? Don't write off the banks.
Okay,
We've made it to our final section, and honestly, this might be the most important one of all, because if you can get this one thing right, everything, and I mean everything, else gets a whole lot easier.
This quote right here, this is the entire philosophy in a nutshell. It's a huge mindset shift. Your business doesn't exist to sell stuff. It exists to serve buyers, your customers. Everything you do has to flow from that one simple truth.
And this idea gets even bigger when you realize there are two types of customers. Of course, you have your external customers, the people who actually buy your stuff. But then you have your internal customers. That's your employees, your managers, your whole team. And why do they matter so much? Because how you treat your own team has a direct one-to-one impact on the experience they give to the outside world.
And here's how this customer-first mindset plays out in the real world. Say you're dealing with a complaint. What's step one? Just listen. Seriously, let them talk. Don't interrupt. Don't take it personally. Their anger is about the situation, not you. And whatever you do, don't argue. You will never win an argument and keep a customer. Once you've listened and solved the problem, then you can gently guide them back. It's all about finding a resolution, not winning a fight.
And this really says it all, doesn't it? Your one and only job is to give customers what they want, where they want it, and how they want it. Anything else, anything at all, is a complete and utter waste of your time and your money.
So we'll leave you with this final thought. The guide says success is just preparation meeting opportunity. After going through this reality check, after seeing the common pitfalls and the absolute need to focus on the customer, what's the one thing you can do today, right now, to get prepared? What's your next step? Really think about that. Thanks for joining me.